Welcome to week 13, the last week in this quarter of Bible Studies for Life, finishing out the month of May, the spring quarter, and finishing up this section. Here we're in Matthew 25 this week, this whole long section about the return of Christ. And today we're looking at a great parable that Jesus tells and seeing what we need to glean out of that, the importance that we need to get from that. Before we dive into Matthew 25, be sure and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video, comment, ask questions, share it with others. We want to try to grow the channel as much as we can. Appreciate all of you that have watched so many times over the past several years. So let's dive into Matthew 25. At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the groom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. When the foolish took their lamps, they didn't take oil with them, but the wise ones took oil in their flasks with their lamps. And when the groom was delayed, they all became drowsy and fell asleep. Okay, so now Jesus is talking about the return. He's been talking about you don't know the day or the hour. He's talking about be ready because you don't know when. Don't go out and live a wanton life, kind of rejecting the master and his role, but you need to be ready. You need to be found doing what you're supposed to be doing, right? So now we get this parable that kind of gives us a different side of that story, because here we've got these 10 virgins that go out to meet the groom. So they're part of the wedding party. Okay, and they're going to go meet the groom. They don't know when the groom's coming, so they've got oil in their lamps so that when he comes, they'll be able to light the way, right? But 5 of them, well, they didn't take oil. They had their lamps, but they didn't have any oil in their lamps. Which doesn't make a lot of sense, right? It's not very smart. The wise ones had oil with their lamps, so that when the groom was delayed, well, they all fall asleep. They're waiting. It's late. In the middle of the night, there was a shout. Here's the groom. Come out to meet him. So they all get up to go out to meet him. And then all the virgins got up and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish one said to the wise one, give us some of your oil because our lamps are going out. So they just had enough in there. They had a little bit. They started it up. They're like, it's about to go out. We need some of your oil. And the wise ones said, no, there won't be enough for us and for you. Go instead to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves. I mean, that's what we did early on. We got prepared just in case, and you weren't prepared. Well, you got to go get prepared now, because he's on his way. When they had gone to buy some, the groom arrived, and those who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later, the rest of the virgins also came and said, Master, Master, open up for us. He replied, Truly, I tell you, I don't know you. Okay. Now, this wedding banquet, this is a common metaphor that Jesus uses to describe eternity in heaven and the great wedding banquet, to be there with the bride, the church, and the groom, Jesus, and to celebrate eternity with him. So the groom has showed up, and some had oil and some didn't. And the ones who didn't, well, they left to go buy some oil. And the ones who had it were ready when he showed up. And those who were ready, well, they got to go into the wedding banquet. And they shut the door. Don't miss this. The door was shut. Reminds us a little bit of the ark. Noah, God shut the door. The door is shut. The door's closed. And when these virgins show up with their oil now, and they're like, open up, open up. And he says, I don't know who you are. I don't know you. Now, this is a parable, right? Which means this is a story that Jesus is telling, and he wants us to grasp the meaning of this parable, to grasp the understanding of this parable. And we see here this need to be prepared, to be ready for the return of Christ. I mean, that's what it's all been talking about. All for weeks now we've been talking about that, right? And we've seen that phrase last week again, be ready for the return of Christ. Okay? And here Christ the groom returns, and some were ready, but some were not ready. And those who went and got their oil and showed up, he says, well, I don't know who you are. Okay, now here's the kicker. Therefore, be alert, because you don't know either the day or the hour. Okay. We've seen this before, right? I mean, this almost word for word statement, we've seen this. Jesus said this in last week's. We saw that, right? Be ready, because you don't know when. Be alert. Be prepared for the return. But what I want you to see in this week's that's different from last week. And last week we had the 2 servants, right? And you got the wise and the faithful servant that's doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then you've got the wicked servant that's just living the high life, right? And they're just being selfish and self-centered and kind of living off whatever they want to do, having a big party and enjoying things, and they're not ready for when the master returns. But here, it's not the wise, good, faithful servant and the laggard, the wicked one. It's the 10 virgins and 5 who were prepared and 5 who weren't prepared. But they were there. They had their lamp. They were dressed. They were in the right place. But they weren't ready. They're not living a wild life. They're not living a rebellious life. You see the difference? Sometimes we think that we can fall into the trap of saying, well, we've got the good people and then we've got the bad people, right? We've got the people that are doing the right thing and people doing the wrong thing. And it's easy to see this distinction, and these people doing the wrong thing are just not ready for Jesus to return. But here it looks to me like he is saying there are some people that are in the right place, and it appears that they're doing the right thing, but ultimately they are not ready. They're not ready for the groom. They're not ready for the return. Therefore, be alert, be ready, because you don't know when. And you're not going to have time to go get ready once he shows up. You don't have time then to get ready. It's be ready, be alert, be prepared. Because he's coming at any time. And just being in the right place and hanging around the right people and singing the right songs and doing all these right things is not being ready. These are like people that they like to be around church. They like to be religious. They're good at being religious. They're good people. They're nice people. We like these people that appears they're like believers. And they are in a lot of ways, except they're not spiritually ready for the return of Christ. And what happens? Let me go back here. Those who were ready go into the wedding banquet. And those who were not ready, the door has been shut. The door's been shut. And he tells them, I don't know you. And this takes us back to, in Matthew when he talks about earlier, he talks about those who say, but I did all these things for you. I did all this stuff for you. And Jesus says, depart from me. I never knew you. Sure, you are religious, but I don't know you. And you see the same language here. I tell you, I don't know you. It uses that both times in these two different stories, one much earlier in Matthew, to describe those people who are very good and who are religious, it appears, and who are moral people. But they are not followers of Christ. They have not given their lives to him. They have not confessed their sin, asked his forgiveness, and committed themselves to him, and his Spirit has not inhabited their lives. They are not in relationship with him. They know about him. They like to be around other people who know him. They like to do things like people who know him, but they do not know him. They stopped short of all that needed to happen. They didn't get their oil for their lamp, right? Did everything except for that. And they should have known. They did know. As soon as they started, they knew, oh, we've got to do this. Well, it's too late. Be alert. Be ready. You don't know the day or the hour. You just don't know. Have you seen this repeated? You just don't know when. All right. Just a couple of other questions you think about and maybe ask in your class. God bless you, man. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Great quarter. Love going through John and Matthew. Looking forward to the summer. Starts next week. So looking forward to that. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Share it with others. Like, comment, ask your questions. Those things we'll answer them best we can. We'll see you next time.